and get us started. Good morning and welcome. Appreciate everybody jumping on this morning and starting your Friday with the Catholic Business Network. We've got a wonderful program for everybody this morning, and really looking forward to our guest speaker. But we are fortunate to have our spiritual advisor who works full time to try to keep this crew in line, and that's Father Mike from Don Bosco. And I thought I'd ask Father Mike to kick us off with an opening prayer.
Thank you, Jeff, and good morning, everyone. As we all know, yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of the WHO announcing the beginning of this COVID pandemic that we still find ourselves in. And so I thought that this morning, as we gather together and as we reflect upon this past year, the challenges, the difficulties that we've all endured, that we would turn to Mary of Nazareth, Mother of God and Star of Hope, to be with us. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Mary, Mother, you know well what it means to have trust and to hope against all hope, trusting in God's name. Your yes to God reawakened every hope for humanity. You experienced powerlessness and loneliness at the birth of your Son. You preserved in your heart the announcement that a sword would pierce your heart. You suffered when you saw your Son a sign of contradiction, misunderstood, rejected. You knew the hostility and rejection aimed at your Son until at the foot of his cross on Golgotha, you understood that hope would not die. That is why you remained with the disciples as a mother. Woman, here is your Son, as the mother of hope. Holy Mary, Mother of God, our Mother, teach us to believe, to hope, and to love with you. Show us the way to his kingdom. Star of the sea, shine upon us and guide us on our way. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit.
Thank you, Father Mike. So as I mentioned, we're fortunate to have a guest speaker this morning, and following Claire's comments and any questions and answers, we'll do a little introductions of some guests that we have, as well as any needs and leads that folks might want to mention. Obviously, we're all here because of the CBN Montgomery County. For those that don't know, my name is Jeff Cannell, and I have the pleasure of being the president of CBN Montgomery County this year. And as I think most folks know, the CBN is a premier networking organization, but more importantly, it's a mission-based not-for-profit. And we are in the business of supporting Catholic education and doing that through grants and need-based scholarships. And those are possible through the support of members and sponsors and others in the community. And just continue to be amazed at how everybody steps up and supports good causes. And certainly we think Catholic education fits in that bucket. And I know everybody on this call does as well. So appreciate you being here. Appreciate your support. For those that may not be members or haven't renewed their membership, it wouldn't be a breakfast if I didn't give out the website and ask everybody to go to it and consider joining. So www.cbnmc.org. Hop on there and renew that membership, or feel free to continue to support the organization. And with that, I have the pleasure of turning it over to a fellow board member, Alice Scanlon, who is going to introduce our guest speaker. Alice?
Thanks, Jeff. I'm honored to introduce Claire Magner Hannan as our speaker this morning. Claire is the Executive Director of the Association of Immunization Managers. She's been working in public health for 25 years and has been supporting state immunization programs since 2004. She works closely with state health officials, the CDC, and other organizations to identify and implement strategies to increase immunization rates. She's become a trusted source for information and insight on vaccines, and has recently been enjoying her more than 15 minutes of fame by appearing on numerous news programs, including NBC's Nightly News, CNN, Fox DC, The Today Show, MSNBC, CBS Morning News, and many others. But her true claim to fame has been as a basketball player and coach. She played for St. Mary's Rockville, Immaculata, and Wagner College. She has continued to coach multiple girls and boys teams and was inducted into the Catholic Business Network Coaches Hall of Fame in 2013. While Claire is often on the losing end of the debate concerning Visitation's dominance over Immaculata basketball in the 80s, her tireless efforts in promoting vaccines cannot be disputed. Thank you, Claire, for all of your hard work and for joining us this morning.
Alice, thank you so much for that. That's hilarious. And Alice did ask if she could be my agent. And I was just going to say, Alice, you would be an awesome agent until you went down that visitation path. And then, I don't know. But okay, thank you so much for having me on. It's really a pleasure to talk to you guys. I'm going to share my screen. Share. Okay, I thought I had it ready to go, but okay. So I'm just going to sort of go through the landscape of the COVID-19 vaccine, how it was developed, what's happening with it, where we are, and what's going on, I guess, and, you know, happy to answer any questions. The association that I work for, AIM, is it's a nonprofit membership association, and the members work in state health agencies in the immunization program. There are actually 64, 50 states, 8 territories, so we have a number of Pacific islands, and there are 6 large cities. These 64 places, jurisdictions we call them, get direct funding from CDC to run the Vaccines for Children program, which is really the only public vaccine program we have in this country. It's for children. Of course, you know, we also work very hard to increase adult immunization knowledge, coverage rates, and of course, during the pandemic, we have been highly involved working with governors and the secretaries of health to roll out the vaccine campaign for COVID. So, and what we do as an association is we provide kind of a forum for all these state immunization programs to work together, to learn from each other, to talk through challenges with each other, to share best practices. We advocate for them. We share with them what's happening at the national level, make sure they're informed, make sure they're ready to go. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the vaccine safety, just make sure you're aware of all the things going on to make sure the vaccine is safe. Talk about how the distribution's going, looking ahead, and then since it's the business network, I thought I would just mention some key issues for businesses. So going back to the very beginning, when Operation Warp Speed was first announced, I think it was May 15th, actually, that President Trump announced Operation Warp Speed and that the government would invest in the development of the vaccine. And this is really unprecedented. And what this did was allow for, because the government was investing and taking off that financial risk from these companies, it allowed for the vaccine process to be highly accelerated. And I know you've probably heard that, but I just wanted to give you a sense of what that really means. So an ordinary vaccine, typical development process would take, you can see across the top bar, 73 months to completion. And you have this research and development phase that goes on for several months. And then really you have phase 1 and phase 2 trials, which are conducted to see if the vaccine is safe and is doing what you hope it to do in animals or in very small scale. So what happened with Operation Warp Speed is that phase 1 and phase 2 were conducted sort of simultaneously, as well as moving into phase 3 much more quickly. So these things were happening in parallel, and they used existing platforms. The mRNA platform was already being developed and in existence, although we didn't have any vaccines come to fruition through that platform yet, but that platform was used. So a typical months or years-long process was shrunk into months. And then we had phase 3 trials beginning as early as July. With the vaccine. At the same time, production was also starting in the hopes that the phase 3 trials would prove successful. The vaccine would already be under production. It would already be being produced. And this really worked out as planned in large respects. So it's really incredible what went into the development and what has succeeded in it. There were 6 vaccine candidates that were invested in, and 3 of them are being used right now. So Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and we still have 3, AstraZeneca, Novavax, and there's a GSK and Sanofi product. The Novavax and AstraZeneca are in phase 3 trials that are nearing completion. So we could have even more candidates coming on to the market. All right, so these are the vaccine brands and candidates that we have so far. And I think what is very, what happened with this process is that we invested in a broad spectrum of candidates that looked promising. And so we now have 3 products that are in some respects completely different. The Pfizer and the Moderna are similar. The Johnson & Johnson is a different mechanism. So it has created some complexity on the distribution side because we have 3 different vaccines and they are not interchangeable. But at the same time, we have 3 different vaccines. And so this is a good thing. So these 3, Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson, have been given emergency use authorization by the FDA. And the emergency use authorization is something that was almost really developed for the situation of having a public health emergency. And it allows for products that are unapproved. The approval process also takes several months. And so it allows products that are unapproved, that clearly show benefit, that demonstrate the same vaccine safety or the same safety and efficacy that a product would demonstrate that's going for licensure, to be used in a situation of a public emergency. And people have a choice. This is, they can choose, they're being offered this vaccine and they have a choice that they can take it. So that's what we have in place right now. Pfizer and Moderna are also filing to get full licensure of their products. And that will come with time with Johnson & Johnson as well. I wanted to review the safety because sometimes when you talk about how quickly we were able to develop the vaccine, people have concerns about safety. You know, what does this mean? Were corners cut? And with vaccines, well, first of all, in the process, the corners were not cut on the safety and efficacy side. So the same size trial, 45,000 people, that's a typical vaccine trial. That's the same size we had with HPV, with other vaccines. So the safety corners were not cut. It was really the time shrunk that going through their bureaucratic process and then going through those parallel timeframes. But with vaccines, there's really heavy safety monitoring after the vaccine gets approved and is being used. There are multiple systems to make sure that as the product is rolling out, we're keeping track of what happens to people when they get vaccinated. So the vaccine adverse event reporting system, that is anyone who gets the vaccine and feels that something has happened to them, they've had an adverse reaction, they can file a claim here. So it's passive. It's relying on them to report this, but all the reports are investigated. We also have multiple active systems where we're looking at people who get vaccinated, and as they go back, into their everyday life, if they show up at a hospital, if they present having a heart attack, for example, that's going to show up in the vaccine safety data link that this person had a heart attack 15 days out, and then they can monitor how many people are having heart attacks that just got the vaccine versus how many people, the same number of people are having heart attacks at that age, routinely. And if they see any red flags, if they see people having something more often in the vaccine group, they investigate. And so that's how it was picked up, that more people were having allergic reactions to the vaccine than would normally in everyday situations. And so we did pick up that this vaccine, there are more allergic reactions. And so that's why there's a very strict 15-minute waiting period and protocols for anyone giving the vaccine to have an EpiPen and to have something available should you have an allergic reaction. And also with this, there's the vaccine VSafe, and you can enroll in this when you get the vaccine. We encouraged healthcare workers in the very beginning to enroll in this. And then the CDC is checking in with them daily with text messages. How are you feeling? How are you doing? Enabling us to really track in real time the safety of the vaccine. So there are a number of systems in place. And now with just under, I think it's 97 million vaccines we've given, and we've been tracking what's happening. I think there's just so much safety assurance going on. You shouldn't be worried about the safety of the vaccine. So the distribution side. The distribution side has been, quite an endeavor as well. So when I said that, like, this is such an amazing accomplishment that we were able to make the vaccine, do this research and development, shrink this process, bring a vaccine to fruition, 3 of them, in fact, in this small period of time. That was amazing. I also want you to understand how difficult the distribution system has been to set up, because I know that, it obviously has not been perfect. It's very difficult to find the vaccine. I know that. But at the same time, this has been an amazing effort to get the vaccine rolled out, because what we have in our country is a private healthcare system, and we have a state-based government system, and we do not normally have a vaccine program that's publicly funded. We don't have vaccines being provided to adults by the federal government. So we're talking about marrying 3 different systems. A state-based, IT-based system. So all of our immunization data for children, this is all collected at the state level, and it is not sent to CDC on a routine basis. Private information, vaccine information is not transmitted outside of the state in ordinary times. So states would, for example, for children, for school requirements, states would submit to the CDC an aggregate report of how many children are up to date. And they don't submit specific, how many kids in this region have received this vaccine. So setting up the IT systems alone to report to CDC on a daily basis of how many people are getting vaccinated has really been a 6 or 8 month incredible task. So what happened is that for distribution, we do have an existing public program for the vaccines for children. So we do have pediatricians across this country, about 44,000 pediatricians enrolled in a government program to give vaccine to children who qualify. We don't have that for adults, so we had to stand this up for adults. We had to have tens of thousands of private providers enroll in each state, sign an agreement basically to give the COVID vaccine free of charge, to store it properly, to report the data within 72 hours back to the government. And this was, an incredible task in itself, setting up electronic, online registering for providers, vetting them, making sure they're licensed, training them on the vaccine storage and handling, which is quite unique for these vaccines, setting up this system, enrolling pharmacies, hospitals, health systems, private providers. So we do have tens of thousands of providers enrolled. We have this system set up. We right now are not using all of these providers, right? The vaccine is still in limited supply. But we hope to eventually be at this point where you could get the vaccine from your private doctor, that private doctors will be able to get the vaccine if they have enrolled. So this infrastructure has been stood up. The state-based systems, as I mentioned, and then having a centralized ordering system. So we're using the centralized ordering and delivery system that we use for children. We've scaled that up for the millions of adults who need to get the vaccine. So an order can be transmitted, the distributor is centralized, they already have the provider information, what time they can receive the package, all of that information. There's so much logistics that have gone into this. And because for the distribution side, because we knew that it would be in short supply, the vaccine would be in limited supply, it was always planned to be a phased out approach. So I'll talk a little bit more about that phased approach. So this is sort of the schematic that shows as vaccine is in limited supply in the beginning, when limited doses are available, there's going to be certain priority groups that get the vaccine. And then at some point, when you reach that top of that peak, we have a large number of doses available, and we are able to meet the demand. And what this chart is showing is they assume that that's at 660 million doses, 2 doses for the 330 million Americans. That demand would go down, and at some point in the future, we would shift to a routine vaccination strategy where private providers would purchase the vaccine, not unlike they do with flu. So this just shows how we originally envisioned it. I think that we are going to hit that point where we have enough supply to meet demand before we get to 660 million doses. And the president is actually trying to encourage that sooner rather than later. And so, we may see that peak coming earlier. But we're still in this uprising of the supply. The supply is growing every week, which is good. In the very beginning, in December, in January, even into February, we were still in that flat part where we weren't getting more vaccine every week. We were only getting that 8 or 9 million doses spread across the entire country. Now we're up to 20 million doses a week. It's allocated to states every week. They put in the orders for those private providers they have enrolled. It gets sent to those providers. They're mostly large hospital systems, some pharmacies right now, and states have also set up these large scale vaccination clinics that are run by public health or run by the federal government. So that's the phased rollout. Just to give you a sense of how many people are in these phases, the first phase was directed at healthcare workers. And we also had long-term care facilities in there, nursing homes. They were served sort of by a different program by the federal government. So they really weren't in those allocated doses necessarily. But so that first phase was about 12 million people. And our goal there was to serve them in hospitals, really, to get them where they work, to make it easy for them to get vaccinated. But I think we learned that spreading that vaccine across hospitals, across multiple provider sites, it wasn't as efficient. It took us longer to vaccinate that phase 1A than it should have had we done large scale, massive clinics that are more efficient. And so we learned from phase 1A. As we moved into phase 1B, which is roughly that 110 million, it says there other essential workers and high risk populations. We kind of shifted to just going with the high risk and starting with older. So we kind of shifted to 75 and older there, some states 65 and older, but it's still roughly 110 million people. And right now we haven't even gotten 110 million vaccines out there. We have expanded fast past the phase 1B in most areas because of the demand, right? We based it on the demand. And if the demand goes down, then it's time to widen the number of people we're looking at. But that just gives you a sense of, sort of how long, if we stay in a phased approach, and how many groups are in that. So to get to that general population, that 200 million, and if you look at population of 16 to 64 that might have high risk conditions, that's about 100 million if you took that out of the general population and made that its own phase. So, we still have a ways to go. And if we stayed in a phased approach, which we will most likely until we get to, that May 1st goal of opening it up to everyone, it would take some time at 20 million doses a week to get to where we needed to be, to get to 330 million people getting vaccinated. So if you do that math, it goes out until like July. Hopefully our doses are continuing to go up. And if we were to get Novavax or AstraZeneca, another vaccine coming in, that would speed things up as well. But that's just to give you a sense of, the phased approach, how we're doing. It is getting better. It is getting better, but it is still in short supply. So I know it's still very hard to find vaccine in Montgomery County. So where are we on this big roadmap that we have? So This is the CDC COVID tracker on the vaccine tab, and this is as of yesterday. And we had 98 million doses have been administered, and 33.8 million people have completed their series. And if you look down at the band across the bottom, that just is literally taken from the COVID tracker. You can see that there's 131 million doses delivered, 98 million administered. And what I would want to point out to you is on the people vaccinated on the bottom row, that percentage of population 65 years in age who've been vaccinated, over 60% of that population has received at least one dose, over 30% fully vaccinated. That's tremendous. And that makes me happy. And nursing homes, we've seen deaths and cases go way down in nursing homes, drops of 60, 70% in nursing homes. So the vaccine is making a difference, and that's just so incredible. A lot of folks looked at that number delivered, a lot of media, they pound me on that, 131 million doses delivered. Why have we only administered 98 million? Can't you guys get this done? Well, I will say to that, you know, obviously they do ranks. There's a lot of states being ranked by their percentage of getting doses into arms. And so you'll see some states doing a better job of that than others. We're never going to be at 100% because doses come out every week and they don't necessarily go into arms and get reported back in that same 5 to 7 day time frame. And the other thing that makes a big difference here is the second doses. So we have a logistical setup where if you get a first dose, you're guaranteed that second dose, and you don't have to go into the meat market of trying to schedule a second dose and trying to fight for it. It's guaranteed to you. And as a provider, if you get a shipment of first doses and you give out 1,000 first doses, you're guaranteed that you're going to get 1,000 second doses in 21 days or 28 days. But it needs to be on your shelf in 21 or 28 days, so it gets shipped to you in 14 days, right? So there are doses, and that's a large number, that can vary, but there are doses that have been delivered that have not been administered, but they have someone's name on the dose, right? They are designated for a second dose. So there really are no doses sitting on a shelf. That's a myth. And when you look at this and you think, there's doses that are unused and the Montgomery County needs to get them out. There really aren't. Montgomery County, we've gotten much better in Montgomery County getting those doses into arms immediately. So this can be deceptive, but it does show where we are, and it's nice to look at it. Every couple of days, it jumps way up, and you just feel really good about the progress we're making. So this is where we are in Maryland. Now, every state, you know, this is just one of those things. This is a state-based system, and every state decided on their own phases. They had flexibility. They were given guidance by the Scientific Advisory Committee, looked at the science around, you know, who should get the vaccine first and gave guidance. But states did their own thing. For example, Pennsylvania, if you're 16 to 64 and you have underlying conditions, you're in phase 1A. If you're in Maryland, you're in that group, you're not until phase 2. So there is a difference in every state. I know that's frustrating. In Maryland, this is how it shakes out. And we're currently in phase 1C in Maryland. So if you went to a Maryland vaccination site, which would be your large scale clinics, Six Flags, M&T Bank, the Convention Center, some of these, you would be phase 1C, you would be eligible, and of course, phase 1A and B. In Montgomery County, we're only in phase 1B. They are opening it up to 1C ages 65 to 74, but not to the essential workers. So it can be very confusing. But this is where we are, and I imagine that we're going to be trying to rush into phase 2 and phase 3 in order to meet that May 1st, everyone is off for the vaccine deadline. And that's probably going to create a little more chaos trying to get the vaccine, because you're going to have larger groups being offered the vaccine at one time. But we'll see how Montgomery County does it. So sorry about that. It's not. Well, anyway, groups 1A, 1B, and 1C, tier 1, that's where Montgomery County is. So Montgomery County does have a pre-registration list that is county, local health department based. So you should be signed up on that. And they also have vaccine in the Adventist system. The pharmacies are getting it here. Governor Hogan did not take a centralized approach in Maryland. He did not want to have sort of a single point of failure. So he's wanted the vaccine. He also is very private sector focused. And he wanted the vaccine out in the private sector, not just going through the local health department. So that's why, and it's a little tough on consumers because the vaccine is so spread out. And CVS has their own registration system. Walgreens has their own registration system. Giant, Safeway, Walmart, Adventist Hospital System, Johns Hopkins Hospital System. But the county does have a pre-registration list and you can get on it. Okay. So some of the challenges, and I probably don't have to spend any time on these, right? The IT, the connection of the data has been particularly challenging for public health, right? We weren't resourced to really have great IT systems, and we were not resourced to do large scale vaccination clinics. Resources have come, and they have been very much needed, and we're rolling now, but we don't have the connection of all these IT systems. Particularly setting up scheduling systems has been, I know, obviously very frustrating, and it's the nature of where we are with IT and public health. Hopefully it gets better when we move on from this. Hopefully we have our state-based immunization systems connected now for good. So we have incomplete race and ethnicity data too, and that's because we have current electronic health records, all kinds of pharmacy connections, programs that were already up and running that did not have race and ethnicity completed. But even from the data we know, we're not doing a good enough job of getting vaccine to communities of color. So we know that African Americans make up 13%, have gotten about 7% of the vaccine. And the disease is actually hitting them harder. So we see a lot of focus trying to work on that. We haven't found really great solutions there, but every state is trying to make sure there's equity, doing a number of different things. And then, of course, the communication and messaging, I think that is improving. And I just want to emphasize that challenge with 3 different vaccines, one of them requiring ultra cold. I didn't go into the storage and handling, but that is unprecedented too. There is no vaccine before this Pfizer vaccine that needed ultra cold storage and handling. And in addition to that, the Pfizer vaccine comes in a package of over 1,000 doses. So come on, providers would normally order doses in the Vaccines for Children program and a 10-dose minimum. So, you talk about trying to keep long-term care facility up to date. If they get new residents, you're talking about a package of vaccine that has 1,000 doses in it. You can't send them that. You have to work out a redistribution mechanism. And for a vaccine that's ultra cold, that's very difficult. We do now have its frozen stability, so we can transport it frozen. So this is good. We're making improvements, but just to emphasize how complex it is. Okay, I don't know, we're probably running short on time. So
we've got a handful of questions in the chat room. So
okay, so let's just go. I'll just say it is getting better. We're getting a lot more doses. There is an ad campaign starting. It's called It's Up to You. So you're going to start seeing these ads talking about the goal. And then just for businesses, I would suggest for businesses, I know you want to get your employees vaccinated, right? Because you want them to come back in the office and feel safe and be safe. But vaccination is a choice. It's a behavior. So provide resources for your employees, educational resources. There's lots of great sites out there. I can send them to you. Listen to your employees. You can join. There's a number of places to make a pledge where you'll provide information. You can provide incentives for your employees to get vaccinated. These are things you can do. This is an example that Blue Cross Blue Shield has. You can join this. You can be a business that supports the community vaccination. So I'll stop there and answer questions. I'm sorry, I get very excited and I tend to be long-winded.
No, that was fantastic. Thank you very much. That was an incredible amount of information in a short period of time, and very well presented. So thank you. There are a handful of questions. I'll do my best to give you these from the chat, and then others may want to jump in. But there were a couple of questions about the FDA. So you indicated that it was approved for emergency use. Have they actually approved it for general use? And then the other sort of question was, can you address how the vaccine works? I mean, in terms of how it changes the in the body, and how the gene therapy, et cetera, works?
Yes. So what the FDA has provided is an emergency use authorization, and it is an emergency use authorization, but it is recommended for populations, the Pfizer 16 and over, for broad population use. So the FDA approval for emergency use, it's still recommended for sort of routine use for all adults. So the licensure that would come, the BLA, the licensure, it'll probably come late in the summer, maybe. They have filed for that. But I think the universal recommendation for it from the CDC, from the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, is still important to know. It's not really singled out for emergency use. It's just that provided the quickest mechanism to make the vaccine available. With regard to how the vaccine works, so the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine are messenger RNA vaccines, and they have, and this is really exciting, groundbreaking stuff too. This is not a live virus. They're not injecting you with any kind of, COVID. You can't get COVID from this. This is RNA that is instructed your body, your immune cells, to produce a response to the protein, the spike-like protein that is the housing agent of COVID. So the messenger RNA is sort of suspended in lipids, and it gets injected into your body, and then your body, it dissipates the lipids, melts away, and then that RNA tells your cells to start making an immune response to that COVID protein, that spike-like protein. And it's really ingenious how it works. And it does not go into the nucleus of your cell, and it doesn't pass through the placenta if you're pregnant, so you're not at risk for getting the virus. So there are a number of really good things about the messenger RNA technology. I mean, one thing about it that's the challenge is that holding that messenger RNA and keeping it stable in those lipids. And that's why it was done in ultra cold. It's frozen now. We see that it's stable and frozen, but that's the complication there. But it's safe, and it's not causing you to be exposed to the virus, even in a killed way. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine uses a different technology. It's a vector virus, and it's a non-replicating adenovirus that delivers that coding information to your cells. So it's kind of like you're being injected with a cold, that virus to deliver the information to your cells, but it's non-replicating, so you'll never get that cold. And it's not the virus itself, the COVID virus, so you can't get COVID virus from that either. And it does in the same way, instructs your cells to have a response to that protein, like that spike protein that would show up if you were to get COVID into your body.
Great.
So, yeah. I'll stop.
I think I've got two quick ones, and then we probably got to cut off the questions. But one was just quickly, if you've already had COVID, do you recommend still getting a vaccine? And then the second one is, do you know if there's any specific plan to address the college population in hopes of getting students back on campuses?
So if you have had COVID, you are recommended to get the vaccine. They are currently looking at whether you would get both doses because they're seeing that people who have had COVID, they have a much stronger reactogenicity response at the second dose. So their side effects after the second dose, like fever, chills, headache, are stronger. And so they may be coming out soon with a recommendation that you would only get the one dose if you've had COVID, but right now you are recommended to get the vaccine. You do see that antibodies wane after you've had the disease. So I do recommend you get the vaccine. And for college students, yeah, there's been some discussion around, should the one dose, the Johnson & Johnson, be used for college students? But there's really nothing specific for college students at the moment. And there probably won't be. So the recommendation, once the vaccine is opened up to that phase to young adults, they should get the vaccine. Some colleges that have experience sort of providing flu vaccine, they're looking at providing the vaccine, but the timing of when it becomes available for college students is not likely to be when they're on campus because it's going to come probably in May, maybe in April. So they should get the vaccine wherever they can. And it's likely that colleges are going to mandate that students get vaccinated to come back in September. So at that point, they may be able to provide the vaccine to students in September. But I would, if I have a college student, she will be getting the vaccine before September. She will be getting it as soon as possible when it's available to her.
Great. Well, again, we can't thank you enough for this. This is fantastic. A number of folks have asked if we could get a copy of the PowerPoint. I don't know if that's possible or not. But
yes, that's possible. And I have some other things that I can put in the PowerPoint. I was PowerPoint challenged last night. That would be helpful to you too.
Yeah, that would be great if we could send it to everybody that was on, and then obviously we'll post this on the site. And if we're able to share that on the site, that would be fantastic as well. But again, we really appreciate you coming on. Appreciate all the information. It's always nice to welcome back a Hall of Famer. And appreciate you taking some time this morning.
Thanks. And I definitely wrote down the link to join so that so I can join you guys.
Fantastic. It's a very small investment for a very good cause. So well done. Appreciate that. And I know we've got a little bit of time here. I don't know if there are any guests that want to introduce themselves and who they're with, or any needs and leads that folks want to mention before we break. Oh, come on. This isn't, I mean, I see Joe Marvin. Joe's joining us. I mean, say hello. Tell us who you're with.
What's going on, Jeff? Hey guys, Joe Marvin. My company Barefoot Ventures specializes in creating safer work environments. So kind of took a pandemic to bring to the importance of disinfection to the forefront. So, we started in 2017 disinfecting operating rooms, and we've basically just made the pivot to, the commercial office sector, from offices, construction sites, basically anything that human beings traffic. So, as people are looking for creative, safer ways to, market their workplace is the safest place to convene, that's kind of where we come in, and we put our programs together to match the schedules as groups kind of phase back in.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot, but
I'm ready.
Any company started by Gonzaga and prep grads, I figured could handle a little pressure.
Absolutely. No, and love the conversation this morning, find it very interesting. So Claire, thank you.
Others, any other guests we've got, or any other needs and leads anybody wants to mention?
I have a guest with us today, Lawrence from Print One. I'll let him tell you about himself.
I was being shy. Hi, everybody. I'm Lawrence. I'm with Print One. We're a printing company, copy shop and mail house in downtown Bethesda, and sort of industrial Silver Spring as well. It's good to see everybody.
Welcome, Lawrence. Others?
I'll go. I don't have a need or lead, but just wanted to share some information because this about our upcoming virtual event that we are going to have, and we're having Suburban Hospital come and do a virtual tour for us of their new facility, which is going to be very interesting. It actually opened up, I think, like right in time for the pandemic. I think they had their first patient like 3 days before, after everything shut down. So that's going to be on March 25th at 6 p.m. So keep an eye out for that invitation and registration.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll send that out early next week along with our Q1 newsletter. So ask everybody to keep an eye out on that. And then we're really excited about our April speaker, another product of Montgomery County, Ali Amoroso, who is the founder and leader of the Rose Foundation, which is a not-for-profit organization that's serving women in extreme poverty in Kenya and other countries in Africa. Really amazing work that she's doing and that organization is doing. And so we're excited that she's going to share a little bit of that with us in April. So unless anybody has anything else for the good of the order, I'll thank everybody again for being here. Claire, again, really appreciate your time and thrilled that we can share all that information with folks through the website. And looking forward to some upcoming events, March 25th with Suburban and April 9th with Ali. And with that, I hope everybody has a great day, a great weekend, and
we'll be back together soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jeff.